Thank you for joining me, Mercedes. I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us about your author journey.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. So I'd love for you to just kind of give us the intro. Who are you? Who do you serve?
Yeah, so I am Mercedes Samudio. I'm a licensed clinical social worker in Southern California and best-selling author of Shame-Proof Parenting, which we're talking about today. And I'm also the founder of the Diversity in Parenting nonprofit. And so what I do is I work as a parent coach, helping parents to feel more confident in their parenting identity and to help them create long-lasting change in their families. And I also work with professionals in the mental health space as well, helping them to feel more confident in working with families and knowing that they're creating that long lasting change in those families.
That's amazing. I love the work you do. I think it's as a parent, sure, but it's just so amazing how you really help like the whole human. So just want to say that out loud, that it's a pretty
Hey, thank
phenomenal
you.
work. Do you remember when you decided you wanted to write a book? I mean, I know it was a while ago, but do you
Yeah,
remember kind of that urge, like, I think I'm going to write a book?
I do. It happened, I think, before I finally made the decision. And it was a really daunting task. And so I remember thinking, probably around the time that I started my practice, I should probably write a book. But instead, I got scared and just did blogs. So I was like, well, that's easier and that's more manageable and I can do that. But I think the time that I realized, okay, I really need to do this and I really need help around it was probably right before we met each other. And I was in that one Facebook group where I think you came on and you were a guest speaker. And I was like, this is the person I need. This is who's going to help me. And so that was kind of that space where I was like, I know I need to write a book, but I also knew myself and I was like, I'm going to need accountability. So
Yeah.
it all kind of just happened at the same time where as soon as I thought that, I was in this group, you were speaking, and I was like, here we are, serendipity. Like, there it is right there.
So when you were like on the verge, like, okay, I think I'm going to contact Morgan, I think I'm going to do this book, do you remember if there were any, like, I don't know, internal doubts or like hesitations?
All of that. I think there was a part of me, and we talked about it a lot, where I was like, well, I haven't done any research. Well, I haven't done any, stuff. Well, I don't have my PhD, and who's going to listen to me? And you knew, and we talked about how I'm not a parent. And I often, at that point was struggling with how can someone who's not a parent write a parenting book and be effective? And so all of that was there. And then also, I had never written a book before. Like I said, I had written blogs, I had written, social media posts, but I was like, how do I take all of that content and put it in something that flows and the reader actually understands the points I'm trying to make? And all of that was scary because I didn't even know where to begin with all of that.
Yeah. And then, okay, so what was it like? You made the commitment, we
Yeah.
started working together. Do you remember what it was like to actually sit down and start writing the book?
Yeah, it was definitely a full journey. I think being in the mental health space, I was really familiar with this journey of coming in stuck and moving through the gunk of it and getting to a goal or getting to a space of change. So I was familiar with that with my clients. I didn't realize doing this book was going to do that for me, where I've often told people I had this parallel process of starting, kind of being like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then just all the stuff that comes up, the imposter syndrome and the who do I think I am and the writer's block and having to work through all of that to that final product of having your book. That was like, I didn't realize it was going to be that transformative at all. Going through that
Yeah.
space. Yeah.
You become the person who wrote the book, right?
Yes. Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah. I think one of the hardest parts for me, just kind of as a side note, and I often share with this with my other colleagues who are starting the process, is when you get through the writer's block, that's like that first hurdle of like, okay, I don't have anything to say, but then you find that you do. I always say the second hurdle is getting through editing, because allowing your voice to be read by someone else is so vulnerable. And then they send you back all these remarks like, I don't know what this means. And what did you mean here? And delete this whole paragraph. And it's like, you really have to wrestle with, all right, I've got to listen to someone else who is taking in as a reader my material. They don't know what I have up here. They're just reading what's there. And if I can't convey my head and my heart in the book, then I have to allow that editing process to help me do that. And so that was the second struggle of writing the book, getting through it and then letting someone else kind of get into it and dive into my reading. I mean, my work, it was really difficult to go through that process.
That is such a good point. We get so focused on the writing part that we forget, the next phases too. So
Yeah.
that's super, super valuable for anyone who's thinking about writing a book.
Yes.
Do you remember any sort of like nuggets or things that you sort of picked up during, that time of writing and maybe even editing that you've kind of carried through with you to this day?
One thing you gave me that has been really helpful is the idea of brain dumping. I hadn't really thought about it or heard about it until we started the process, but I think we get stuck thinking we only can write what the book is about. There's no other writing that we can do around this. And even now, when I'm trying to think of new concepts and new ideas, I'll just brain dump whatever. I'm just going to have the stream of consciousness, even if it's not about what the thing is I'm trying to manifest or bring into the world. It's just all the stuff that comes up around it. And I think that helped a lot. And I remember one of those brain dump sessions for me actually became the beginning of my book. And I remember that. And I was like, I had no intention of that becoming part of my book, but it was so helpful for me just to say, okay, I'm not going to write just on the book. I'm just going to brain dump. That was a really good space. And I think I would say another nugget was you helped me to realize that I have more than one book in me. And so I remember we would have discussions. I'd be like, oh, I want to talk about this and that. And you're like, let's stay focused on this theme, this idea. Let's stay here and let's open up another Word document where you put all those extra ideas so you can go back and flesh them out for your second, third, fourth book. And I was like, okay, I don't have to put everything I know and everything I want to say in one book. I can stay focused in this book and have more space to explore those other ideas later on.
Ah, so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially for us first time authors, we want to put everything in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
So,
you
so
think you
let's
won't have another opportunity to. So you're like, let's put everything I know. And it's like, no, you will have other opportunities. you know?
totally, totally. Okay. So let's fast forward life now. So the
Mhm.
book came out. It was big success. Um, I guess actually before we fast forward all the way to now, what was it like launching the book?
Yeah, it was definitely fun, but definitely stressful because it's all you. It's all you. And one thing that I often share with authors who are launching is that you really have to put your all into that launch because I realize that if you don't care about your book, why will anybody else care? So even if you think I'm overdoing it, overdo it. Like be passionate, do lives, post, send emails. Like I remember doing that thinking everyone's going to get so sick of me, but so many people were like, oh, I didn't know you had a book. Oh, thanks for sharing it. Oh, I just saw this post. Oh, I just opened up my email 3 weeks later and found out you had a book. It's like people aren't always, on their social media or always in their emails. So that first couple of weeks while you're launching is so important for you just to dive in, put your all in there because people don't always see everything. And so if you don't put it out there and you don't let them know that it's there, they don't even know to support you. They don't even know to share. They don't even know to buy it or download it.
So true. Yeah,
Yeah.
like that initial launch is the time to just like go all in and talk about it as much as you can
Yep.
possibly stand.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, and so fast forward now, what's changed? What has the book made possible for your life now?
I would honestly say a lot of where I am now probably wouldn't have been possible or would have been a lot harder to bring into fruition with if I didn't have the book. So some things that I was able to do is I was able to get more speaking. So many people have come in contact with my work through the book, right? Through word of mouth that they'll read the book and then email me and say, hey, we just read your book. Hey, we just come in contact with you. Would you like to come speak? And that was something that I initially wanted, but I didn't think was actually going to like kind of really begin happening once the book came out. Putting yourself out there becomes easier because you can give somebody a physical copy of your ideas and your voice and your narrative. And so I'm able to say, hey, take a look at the book. Here's a link to the PDF. Here's a link to the Amazon page. Go ahead and check it out. And I think that helped me to get a lot of things. I was able to start my adjunct professor journey because, the guy who was interviewing me was like, oh, I looked up your book on Amazon and saw all the reviews and that's cool. And I'm like, all right. So like people check you out, people Google you. And if your book comes up and they see it's on Amazon, which everybody knows is a respectful site, they see that there's reviews, they see that people are talking about it. You kind of add a lot of credibility to your brand and yourself because people see that you've got a physical copy of something that they can tangibly pick up and look at. And so it's helped open up just so many doors for my career and my brand and my message of what I do to support parents.
That's amazing. Do you have any like favorite moments of when someone reached out to you and like maybe like when you were invited to be a speaker at some event or when a client reached out to you? Any like
Yeah.
memorable things happen?
I would say the one that I just shared about the adjunct professor, because I submitted my, application, got to the interview, and that was one of the first things he said. He was like, "Oh, I saw your book on Amazon. That's cool." And I was like, "All right." I got a speaking gig actually for this year because they had come in contact with the book, and I think several of the people at the agency had read the book or come in contact with the book, and that got back to their marketing director, who was like, "Hey, a couple of our colleagues have told us that they want you to come speak because you seem to have a really good understanding of families and parents." And so that was a really good space. People even came in contact with my nonprofit and my conference because of the book. So they really believed that I understood this whole parenting space and whole family space. And so people were able to really identify that this is a conference I want to go to. This is a nonprofit I want to support because of the book and the impact of the book. And so I feel like it became really a good way for me to have a platform with which to stand on and say, "Hey guys, I know my stuff. I know what I'm doing. Let's collaborate, let's work together." And so that I feel like the book just really gave me that platform and that space.
Oh, that's amazing. And yeah, now you have a conference of your own
Yes.
and a nonprofit. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing with the conference and the nonprofit?
Yeah. So it's called Diversity in Parenting Incorporated. That's the nonprofit, and the conference is Diversity in Parenting Conference. And that whole space is really about helping professionals to kind of show up in all the diverse ways, identities, cultures, kind of spaces. Because I think in the parenting world, it's so important to have different types of families represented, especially as professionals. We don't often get to see different identities represented in all the professional conferences that we go to. And so the conference becomes twofold, not just diversity in the speakers and the topics, but also really diversity in just talking about these different types of families, these different types of spaces, and helping professionals to feel confident being able to work with and serve those type of families. That's really the mission and in the space that I'm in with diversity and parenting.
Ah, that's amazing. So not only are you getting to speak on other people's platforms, you're literally creating your own like massive platform. It's so
Yeah.
exciting to watch.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited about it. I feel like that's what you're supposed to do when you get to a space where you have a message and you have a brand and you have an audience. Allowing other people to come into that space allows then now your reach and your impact to go further because those people go out and start their platforms and their messages. So I feel like you just reach more people. I mean, we're only one person at a time. I can't help everybody, but if I can give confidence and tools and space to others, they can go out and help other people.
Ah, I love it. So if someone is watching this and they've thought about a book, but they're on the fence about actually writing or can they really do it? What would you say to someone who's kind of on that fence right now?
I would say reach out to Morgan and talk to her and have a consult and just kind of, I think the idea is to be brave enough to give yourself permission to say, this is my idea, and to see if it's a viable idea or to see if pieces of it can be viable or how can you really create a space where this is a really good idea, a good book. I think a lot of times we're scared to even give ourselves permission to even consult with somebody. And I think just take that first step and say, I'm going to reach out to somebody and say, I want to write a book about XYZ. Does this make sense? Is there an audience for it? How do I even start figuring out if there's an audience for it? And I think that gives you the space to even decide, should I make this jump or should I do more research or should I do more building or what should I be doing? I always tell people knowledge trumps assumption every single time. And so if you don't have the knowledge and you don't have the information, you're going to be stuck thinking, I'll write a book one day.
So smart. Just ask, right?
Just
If you aren't
ask.
sure,
Yeah,
ask for someone else's like opinion who is
right,
in the space. That makes sense.
right, right.
Okay. Last question. Is there anything else that you would sort of say just from the heart about being an author, about working with me, about working with Paper Raven Books that you just want other people to know?
I'll start with being an author. I think one of the things that I had to learn, and many people who get in this space have to learn, is that this is hard work. Yes, you'll have a book, but you also have to market it. You also have to get out there. You also have to be brave and show up and keep showing up. And don't say, well, I launched it 2 months ago, so it's it. No, you got to keep showing up. You got to keep telling people about it. And I think that piece of it, you don't realize when you're writing the book or coming up with it, how much work that you're going to have to be doing to keep putting yourself out there, keep being relevant, keep showing up for your book and your brand. And I think that's something to really be mindful of. As far as working with you in Paper Raven Books, I would say that you really need to commit to doing the work. yes, Morgan's going to tell you what to do. And yes, the team's going to have all these things for you to do, but you got to do it. Morgan can't write the book for you. So if you don't, show up for the writing, assignments, if you don't show up for the weekly consultations, like, then you're doing yourself a disservice, and you're doing Morgan and all of the team a disservice, because they're there to help. They'll say, get this done by, do the work, get it done by. And I say that as someone who knows how hard it is to like get it done, and everything in your life is going to come up. The dog is going to be sick. The husband's going to need you. The family's going to need you. And still you have to sit down and say, this is important to me. I need to find time this week to write. I need to find time this week to, look into what I need to be doing, and go into, whatever the board is that has all my to-dos, and actually figuring them out and doing them. Or communicate and say, I couldn't do it this week, and this is why. And I think that's the part, again, going into that nitty gritty stuff that we don't talk about. We talk about, yay, the launch, yay, the book, but there's a lot of that nitty gritty, messy stuff that you really got to stay committed to as well, to get to that finished product.
So true. I'm going to clip this and we're going to show it to everybody who's writing a book with us. I'm going to show it to myself, because we always need that reminder, even like reflected back to us. It's like, this is important to me. I'm going to show up and I'm going to do the work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wise words. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Mercedes. You guys go check out Mercedes' book, Shame Proof Parenting. It's on Amazon, and we'd love for you guys to get to know Mercedes and all the work that she's doing in the parenting world. Thank you, Mercedes.
Thank you for having me.